Evelyn just had surgery, lying alone in the hospital, when her son Logan called, "Mom, I'm getting married!" But his next words left her paralyzed with shock. "I sold your house and car!" The only son she loved her whole life had betrayed her at her weakest moment. Logan thought his sick mother couldn't fight back, but he forgot one deadly detail. When Paula stormed the wedding and arrested Logan right in front of his bride, Alabama L guests were in shock. Turns out, Logan used forged documents to steal her property. But how did the elderly mother plan her perfect revenge? Can Logan escape prison and win back his wealthy bride? And before we continue, please write in the comments where you're from and how old you are. Okay, let's enjoy listening. Evelyn opened her eyes. The white ceiling of the hospital ward, the dim light of the lamp, the smell of medicine. All of it reminded her where she was. The surgery had gone successfully, as the doctor said. She felt weak, but the pain was gradually fading. The ward was quiet, with only occasional muffled voices from the corridor. She was alone, no one visited, but she hadn't expected it. Logan, her son, was always busy. She turned onto her side, careful not to disturb the post-operative stitches. Fragments of thoughts raced through her mind, about her husband, who was no longer with her, about Logan, her only support and hope, about the future, which had become so uncertain. Evening descended on the city. Lights flickered on outside the window. The ward was enveloped in twilight. Evelyn was dozing when the phone rang. With effort, she lifted her hand and answered. "Mom, hi." Logan's voice sounded rushed, without warmth. "Hello, Logan," she replied, trying to infuse her voice with cheer. "Listen, Mom, I'm getting married tomorrow." Evelyn froze. The news stunned her. She knew about Sophia, about her wealthy parents, but she hadn't thought it would happen so quickly. "Congratulations, Logan," she forced out. "I'm happy for you." "Yeah, Mom, thanks. You know, money's tight. Anyway, the house and car aren't yours anymore. I sold them." Evelyn's throat went dry. She couldn't believe her ears. Logan had sold her house, her car, everything left from her husband, everything dear to her. "What did you say?" she whispered. "Come on, Mom. Don't act like a child. We need to live somehow. Sophia deserves the best, and you'll manage." Evelyn felt a wave of cold sweep through her body. Betrayal. That's what it was. Her own son had betrayed her, stripped her of shelter, of means to survive. Evelyn lay in bed, paralyzed by shock. One thought pounded in her head. How could he? How could the son she loved more than life do this to her? Tears welled up in her eyes, but she held them back. Anger, hurt, bitterness, all tangled into one knot. But through all those feelings, one emerged: determination. Suddenly, a strange smile formed deep in her soul. The corners of her lips slowly curved upward. Logan had miscalculated. He'd forgotten one small but crucial detail. She opened her eyes, and they burned with fire. "Fine," she whispered, "but you've forgotten something." And she ended the call. Evelyn closed her eyes, trying to calm herself. Her mind replayed Logan's last words. "The house and car aren't yours anymore." He thought everything had gone smoothly, that she was broken and helpless. He was wrong. Meanwhile, Logan sat in a restaurant, selecting the wedding banquet menu. He was excited but satisfied. Everything was going according to plan. The house and car sold, money in the account. Sophia would soon be his wife. Her parents, though reluctantly, had given their consent after seeing his financial stability. He imagined their happy life, full of luxury and pleasures. The conversation had gone surprisingly smoothly. She'd even congratulated him, but his mother's last words made him uneasy. "Fine, but you've forgotten something." What did she mean? He tried to recall every detail of the deal. The forged power of attorney, flawless. The notary he'd tricked. The buyer who'd paid cash, no questions asked. What could he have forgotten? Anxiety began to creep in. He brushed it off. Everything's under control. No need to pay attention to the words of an old, sick woman. But something gnawed at him from inside. He felt he'd missed something important. Evelyn picked up the phone and dialed an old acquaintance, Mr. Richardson, the notary she'd worked with before her husband's death. He was an honest and decent man she trusted. "Hello, Mr. Richardson," she said, striving to sound calm and confident. "Evelyn, hello." The notary's voice was warm and sympathetic. "How are you feeling? I heard you're in the hospital." "Thank you, Mr. Richardson. I'm better now. I have one question for you. Did you issue a power of attorney in my son's name, Logan, for the sale of my apartment and car?" Silence hung on the line. Evelyn held her breath. "No, Evelyn," Richardson replied after a pause. "I issued no such power of attorney to your son, and I couldn't have. You know I work strictly by the law." Evelyn exhaled. There it was, the confirmation of her suspicions. Logan had forged the power of attorney, committed a crime. "Thank you, Mr. Richardson," she said. "That's all I needed to know. Evelyn, if you need my help, just ask. I'm always ready to assist." "Thank you," she repeated. "I'll be discharged from the hospital soon, and I'll definitely stop by," she said and hung up. She leaned back on the pillow and closed her eyes. Now she knew what to do. She would fight for her home, her honor, her future, and she wouldn't stop at anything. Richardson removed his thin-rimmed glasses and wiped them with the corner of a handkerchief. His office smelled of old wood and fine tobacco scents Evelyn had always found soothing. But today, calm had evaporated, leaving a bitter taste in her mouth. "Evelyn," Richardson said in his even, slightly raspy voice. "Yes. According to all the documents, the house and car are still registered in your name. No changes in the registry." Evelyn sighed with relief. At least some certainty in this nightmare. So Logan couldn't have sold them? Not legally. Richardson shook his head. Without your personal presence and notarized consent, it's absolutely impossible. Especially since you drew up a will for him, clearly outlining all conditions for inheritance. Evelyn remembered the day she and her husband had drafted that will. It had seemed like a formality, a precaution. She could never have imagined using it against her own son. And the power of attorney? He mentioned one he supposedly acted on. Richardson frowned. "I didn't notarize any power of attorney in your name. I remember you asked for a general power of attorney blank in case of illness. You picked it up personally, but as far as I know, you never activated it. My archives show no registered power of attorney from you to Logan." Richardson paused, looking at Evelyn over his glasses. He'd known her for years, knew her as a decent and honest person. From his eyes, she could tell he understood exactly what had happened. "So he forged it," Evelyn said quietly, more to herself than to the notary. "Forged my signature, the seal. Oh God." Fragments of conversations flashed in her mind, Logan's hints about the quick wedding, his sudden generosity in recent months. She'd attributed it to infatuation, to impressing Sophia's rich parents. How wrong she'd been. "Evelyn," Richardson spoke again, his voice full of sympathy. "I understand this is a very unpleasant situation, but you need to act fast. If your son really forged documents, it's a criminal offense." "I know," Evelyn replied, gathering her strength. "What do I need to do?" First, Richardson put on his glasses and opened his computer. "Contact the DMV and the land registry immediately. Report possible fraud, an attempt at an illegal transaction. File a statement so they can investigate and block any operations with your property." "All right." Evelyn pulled out her phone and began dialing the DMV. Her hands trembled slightly, but she tried to stay calm. "Second," Richardson continued, "you'll need a good lawyer. I can recommend a few trusted specialists. They'll help draft the necessary statements and represent you in court if it comes to that." "Thank you," Evelyn said, glancing up from the phone. "I'll think about it for now. I need to block the deals." The call to the DMV was long and exhausting. She had to explain the situation multiple times, answer countless questions. Finally, they accepted her statement and promised an investigation. Then she called the land registry. The process there was even more complicated and bureaucratic. She had to send scans of documents proving her ownership, write explanations, but she was determined. She wouldn't let Logan get away with it so easily. After finishing the calls, Evelyn felt utterly drained. The emotional strain of the last hours was taking its toll. She leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes. "Perhaps you should have some tea?" Richardson suggested, noticing her state. "I have a good herbal blend." Evelyn nodded. A cup of hot tea was just what she needed. While Richardson brewed it, she replayed the conversation with Logan in her mind. How could he do this to her? Had money blinded him so completely? Richardson placed a steaming cup in front of her. "Evelyn," he said, sitting across from her. "I know it's incredibly hard for you right now, but you're a strong woman. You'll get through this." Evelyn smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Your support means a lot to me right now." She took a sip of tea. The hot liquid warmed her from within. "I don't understand," she said after a pause. "How could he do this? I always tried to give him the best, never denied him anything." "Children often don't appreciate what they have," Richardson replied. "They think everything is owed to them, but life eventually sets things right." Evelyn sighed. "I hope you're right. I just want him to realize his mistake and face the consequences." You're right," Richardson said. "I'm sure justice will prevail." He fell silent, giving Evelyn time to compose herself, then spoke again. "You know, Evelyn, I think you should tell Sophia about this." Evelyn raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Why?" "She deserves to know who she's tying her life to," Richardson answered. "It might help her make the right decision," Evelyn pondered. There was sense in Richardson's words. Sophia wasn't an angel, but she didn't seem evil. Perhaps she was just deluded, charmed by Logan. "You're right," Evelyn said. "I'll think about it." She finished her tea and stood up. "Thank you for everything. You've helped me so much. Always glad to, Evelyn. Call any time if you need something." Evelyn left the notary's office feeling a bit more confident. Meanwhile, Logan sat in an upscale restaurant, choosing dishes for the wedding banquet. He was in a great mood. Everything was on track. Mom in the hospital, house and car sold, money in the account. Tomorrow he'd marry Sophia, and his life would finally turn around. He pulled out his phone and called his mother. "Mom," he said cheerfully, "I'm picking out the banquet here." Silence on the line. "Mom, why are you quiet? Everything okay?" "Yes, Logan," Evelyn replied calmly. "Everything's fine. You just forgot something." "What did I forget?" Logan asked, frowning. "You forgot that I'm your mother," Evelyn said, "and that I'll always protect myself and what's dear to me." Logan felt a chill run down his spine. What did she mean? "Mom, I don't understand what you're talking about." "You'll understand soon, Logan. Very soon." Evelyn hung up. Logan stared at the phone, mesmerized. Something told him his cloudless happiness was over. Logan woke up in a fantastic mood. Today was his day. The day he'd finally tie the knot with Sophia, the girl of his dreams, and more importantly, from a very wealthy family. He looked in the mirror, adjusted his perfectly fitted suit, and smiled smugly. Everything was going as planned. The house and car were practically sold, money about to hit his account. He was sure he'd pulled it off flawlessly. He went downstairs, where Sophia awaited him. She looked dazzling in her white dress. Logan couldn't take his eyes off her. "You're beautiful," he whispered, kissing her cheek. "Thanks," Sophia replied, but her voice lacked the joy he expected. "We need to go." They left the house and got into the car, which Logan, by the way, also planned to sell after the wedding. On the way to the registry office, Logan chattered nonstop, talking about how they'd live, how they'd spend the money from the house and car sales, how they'd travel the world. Sophia listened silently, with a strange expression on her face. He chalked it up to pre-wedding nerves. At the registry office, guests had already gathered. Sophia's parents, friends, a few distant relatives. Everyone smiled and congratulated them. Logan felt on top of the world. It was, at that moment, as he imagined himself as Sophia's husband, rich and happy, that a man in uniform approached. "Logan?" he asked. "Yes, that's me," Logan replied, frowning in confusion. "You have a summons. Come with me." Logan took the summons with trembling hands and read, "You are summoned to the investigative department to give testimony regarding document forgery and attempted fraud." The world spun around him. He felt the blood drain from his face. Document forgery. Fraud. What was this about? "Sorry, there must be some mistake," he muttered, looking at the officer. "I didn't forge anything or deceive anyone. The investigation will decide that." The officer cut him off. "Now, please come with us." Logan looked at Sophia. She stood pale as a sheet, staring at him in horror. Sophia's parents whispered among themselves, casting contemptuous glances his way. The guests fell silent, and an oppressive hush filled the room. "What's going on?" Sophia asked. Her voice trembled. "Logan, what does this mean?" Logan tried to say something to justify himself, but the words stuck in his throat. He realized everything had collapsed, his scam exposed, and now prison loomed. I'll explain everything," he finally squeezed out. "It's some misunderstanding." "I don't think so," Sophia replied coldly. She turned and walked away, leaving Logan standing in the middle of the registry office, humiliated and disgraced. Sophia's parents followed her, shooting Logan a disdainful look. Guests began to disperse, whispering and condemning him. At that moment, the very buyer of the house whom he'd deceived approached Logan. The man's face was red with rage. "Where's my money?" he yelled at Logan. "You promised me the house." "I gave you all my savings. I'll return everything," Logan mumbled, feeling the ground slip away. "Return it? I'll sue you," the buyer roared. "You'll answer for everything." He turned and left, leaving Logan in utter despair. The officer politely took him by the arm and led him to the exit. Logan resisted, tried to break free, but it was futile. He understood his life was over. At the police station, they interrogated Logan. He denied all charges, insisting it was a mistake, that he hadn't forged any documents. But the investigator was adamant. He had all the evidence of Logan's guilt: Evelyn's statement, Richardson's testimony, the deceived buyer's account, the expert analysis of the forged power of attorney. Logan was charged with fraud and document forgery. He faced several years in prison. That same day, Sophia called Logan. "How could you do this?" she asked. Her voice was full of disappointment and anger. "How could you deceive your own mother?" I just wanted us to have everything good," Logan tried to justify. "I wanted to secure our future. A future built on lies and deceit?" Sophia sneered contemptuously. "I don't need that kind of future. It's over between us." She hung up. Logan was left alone, realizing he'd lost everything. His fiancée, the money, his reputation, his freedom, all because of his greed and stupidity. He remembered his mother, how she'd loved him, cared for him, forgiven all his antics. And he'd betrayed her, the closest, dearest person. Logan felt tears streaming down his cheeks. For the first time in his life, he felt true shame. Shame for his actions, shame before his mother, shame before Sophia. He understood he deserved everything that had happened, and now he'd have to pay for his mistakes. Evelyn returned home. The walls felt familiar, down to every crack in the paint. The scent of home, a mix of old wood, her favorite floral soap, and the faint aroma of pies she loved baking on weekends calmed her. Nothing had changed. Her world, which Logan had so carelessly tried to destroy, had held firm. She slowly walked through the rooms, touching the familiar surfaces with her fingertips. There was her favorite armchair in the living room, covered with a knitted blanket. Here, she'd read books in the evenings, sip tea, and think about the future. On the coffee table, framed photos. Her husband smiling. Little Logan with huge blue eyes and tousled hair. It hurt deeply. How could he do this? In the bedroom, heavy curtains shielded from the bright sun. On the nightstand, an open book and glasses. Everything as she'd left it. As if those terrible days in the hospital, Logan's call, the feelings of helplessness and despair, had never happened. Evelyn went to the window. The city lived its usual life. Cars rushed along the streets. People hurried about their business. No one guessed the storm raging in her soul. Several days flew by in chores. Evelyn handled document restoration, ownership confirmation. The lawyer recommended by Richardson proved a true professional. He explained the legal intricacies clearly and calmly, instilling confidence in a positive outcome. Finally, news came from the court. The fraudulent deal was declared invalid. The property was fully returned to Evelyn. She sighed with relief. Justice had triumphed. That same day, a message arrived on her phone from Logan. Simple, dry, emotionless. "Mom, forgive me." Evelyn stared at the screen for a long time, unsure how to respond. Forgive? Could she ever forgive him? The pain of betrayal was too strong. She didn't reply. Not now, maybe someday, but not now. A few days later, another message came, this time from Sophia. Evelyn, hello. I know it's not the right time, but I wanted to offer my sincere apologies for Logan's behavior. I didn't know he was capable of this. He doesn't deserve you. I wish you peace and happiness. Evelyn read it several times. Sophia's words touched her. The girl, betrayed just like her, had found the strength to apologize. Evelyn felt respect for Sophia. Logan probably had a chance to build a happy life with her if he hadn't taken the path of deceit and greed. She typed a reply. Sophia, thank you for your words. I appreciate your sincerity. I wish you all the best. Evening fell. Evelyn stepped onto the balcony. The city lit up its lights. A gentle breeze ruffled her hair. In her hands, a cup of hot tea with lemon. She gazed at the horizon, thinking about the future. A future without Logan. A future she must build herself. Suddenly, she felt a surge of strength. The pain receded, leaving room for lightness and hope. She'd survived betrayal, humiliation, and fear, and stood tall. She'd proven to herself and everyone that she could protect herself and her interests. Evelyn took a deep breath. The air was fresh and clean. She smiled. For the first time in a long while, sincerely and carefree. The smile lit up her face, smoothing the wrinkles. She was beautiful, beautiful in her strength, her wisdom, her ability to forgive. The balcony was quiet and peaceful. Only the distant hum of the city reached her. Evelyn closed her eyes and listened to the silence. In that silence, she heard the voice of her soul, a voice telling her everything would be all right. That evening, she fell asleep calmly and serenely. In her dream, her husband appeared. He smiled at her and said, "Well done, Evelyn. I'm proud of you." In the morning, she woke with a sense of renewal. She felt stronger, more confident, and happier than ever. She knew life went on, and she was ready to live it. To live for herself, for those who loved and valued her, to live with her head held high. That day, Evelyn decided to do what she'd long postponed. She called an old friend she hadn't seen in years. They agreed to meet at a cafe the following week. In the evening, she went to the theater. She bought a ticket to a play she'd wanted to see for ages. She enjoyed the actors' performances, the music, the atmosphere. After the show, she strolled through the night city. She admired the lights, listened to the street sounds, and felt happy. That day, Evelyn understood that life is beautiful, and she deserves the very best. All right, thanks for listening.